Sometimes love doesn't end. It simply gets lost. Not because two people stopped caring, but because fate, or something else, quietly stepped in between them. This is the story of two lovers who both believed they had been forgotten. But the truth was hidden away in a dusty attic for more than 40 years. Welcome to our channel, where we explore powerful love stories, life lessons, and emotional journeys that stay with you long after the story ends. Daniel first met Margaret on a quiet autumn afternoon in their final year of high school. The school library was almost empty that day. Margaret sat by the window, reading a novel, the golden sunlight falling gently across the pages. Daniel noticed her immediately. Not because she was the loudest girl in the room, but because she was the calmest. She had this quiet presence that just made the world feel a little slower, a little more peaceful. One small conversation about the book she was reading turned into another. Soon, they were studying together, walking home together, and sharing their dreams about the future. Daniel wanted to become a writer, to create worlds with words. Margaret dreamed of traveling the world and helping people. But more than anything, they dreamed about building a life together. To them, love felt simple. It was pure, unbreakable. But life rarely moves according to our plans. Just months after graduation, Daniel received unexpected news. He had been accepted into a military training program far from home. At the exact same time, Margaret's father announced that their family would be moving to another state for his new job. Suddenly, the world they had so carefully planned began to change, pulling them in opposite directions. The night before Daniel left, they met at their favorite place, a small hill that overlooked the town. The city lights twinkled below like a blanket of stars. Margaret held his hands tightly, her eyes searching his. "Promise me something," she said softly, her voice barely a whisper against the cool night air. "What?" he asked. "Write to me." Daniel smiled, a sad but reassuring smile. "I'll write every week, and I'll reply to every letter," she promised back. Under the quiet stars, they made a simple pact. No matter how many miles separated them, their love would continue through letters. It would be their lifeline. And at first, they kept their promise. Daniel wrote long, detailed letters describing his new life. He wrote about the difficult training, the long, lonely nights, and how much he missed her smile, her voice, her presence. Margaret wrote back with just as much heart, telling him about her new school, the unfamiliar town, and the quiet moments when she would close her eyes and pretend he was right there with her. For a while, everything felt normal. Their letters bridged the distance. But slowly, something strange began to happen. Daniel stopped receiving her replies. At first, he assumed she was busy. Maybe school had become too demanding. Maybe the mail was just delayed. He made excuses. He waited, but weeks turned into months, and still, nothing. The mailbox remained empty. His hope began to dwindle, replaced by a growing ache of confusion and fear. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, Margaret was experiencing the exact same thing. She kept writing to Daniel, pouring her heart out onto the page, but she never received a single response. Every single day, she would check the mailbox with a flutter of hope in her chest. And every single day, that hope was crushed when she found nothing. The silence was deafening. Eventually, both of them were forced to believe the same painful thing. The other had stopped writing. The other had moved on. Years passed. The silence stretched into a permanent part of their lives. Daniel slowly, painfully, convinced himself that Margaret had found someone else. Maybe their young love had simply faded with time and distance. Maybe she had forgotten him. Margaret came to the same heartbreaking conclusion. Perhaps Daniel's promises had meant less to him than she believed. Perhaps the military had changed him. Eventually, life, as it does, pushed them forward. They built separate lives. They married other people. They raised families. From the outside, their lives looked normal, complete. But deep inside, in a quiet part of their hearts they never spoke of, a question always lingered. What really happened? Why did the letters just stop? 40 years passed. Margaret was now in her 60s. After her father passed away, she returned to her old family house to sort through his belongings. The house felt smaller than she remembered, the air thick with memories of another lifetime. While cleaning out the dusty, forgotten corners of the attic, she noticed something unusual. A small, dark wooden box hidden beneath old blankets and dusty furniture. Curious, she pulled it out and wiped away the cobwebs. She opened it. Inside, her breath caught in her throat. There were dozens and dozens of letters, all carefully tied together with faded red ribbon. Her heart skipped a beat. Every single envelope had her name written on it, and every single letter had the same return address, Daniel's. Her hands began to tremble as she untied the ribbon and opened the first one, then the second, then the third. Letter after letter, year after year. Daniel had never stopped writing. In those letters, he wrote about everything. He wrote about how much he missed her, how he waited for her replies, how he wondered what he could have possibly done wrong to make her stop writing back. One letter, dated 2 years after they separated, read, "Margaret, I still check the mailbox every week. I just hope one day your letter will finally arrive." Tears streamed down her face as the weight of 40 years of misunderstanding crashed down on her. Suddenly, everything became painfully clear. Her father had hidden the letters. Every single one of them. He had believed Daniel was a distraction, someone who would hold her back from the future he had planned for her, so he made a decision. A secret decision that altered the course of 2 lives forever. Margaret spent the next few days sitting in that dusty attic, reading every single letter. 40 years of unspoken love, of unanswered questions, of a life they could have had waiting silently inside that box. But one crucial question remained. Was Daniel still alive? She began a frantic search. She contacted old classmates. She looked through military records. She spent hours searching online, piecing together fragments of his life. Finally, she found him. Daniel was living a quiet life in another town, not too far away. Her heart pounded in her chest as she drove to his address, the box of letters sitting on the passenger seat beside her. When Daniel opened the door, he stared at her in disbelief. Time had changed their faces, adding lines of age and experience. But their eyes still recognized each other instantly. For a long, silent moment, neither of them spoke. The 40 years between them hung in the air. Finally, Margaret whispered, her voice choked with emotion, "I thought you stopped loving me." Daniel just shook his head slowly, his own eyes filling with tears. "I never did. I wrote to you every week." Then she handed him the box, and together, side by side, they opened the letters. As they read his words aloud, decades of silence and pain finally made sense. The past could not be rewritten. The years they lost could never be recovered. But the truth, after so long, had finally been found. Sometimes love doesn't disappear. Sometimes it simply waits, patiently, quietly, for the truth to be uncovered. Because real love, even when it's buried in silence for 40 years, never truly dies. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more incredible love stories like this one.